Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm super, thanks for asking. You know, the European Union comes in for a lot of stick, and occasionally rightly so, but even Ken Livingstone can cheer them on for their intransigence in the face of councils who wish to deny a newt a home. Cheshire County Council wants to do some building work at one of its schools, but a number of these slimy creatures live there and might be disturbed by the noise, so they have to be moved. This will cost £60,000, which is not a great deal of money, until you learn that there's just 4 newts living there. That's a relocation fee of £15,000 per newt. The whole world's gone crazy. There's a lot of people under the Heathrow flight path who could do with that, but they won't get a penny. But the EU directive is clear. Newts come first, as they do in France. As a first course, fried in garlic butter. Ooh, so yummy. Go down a treat with a nice glass of Chardonnay, which soon you won't be able to afford, because some morons get drunk and kick people on a Saturday night. That's the key to ending alcohol abuse by the young, the government says. Raise the duty and make booze more expensive. Well, it'll have to be a lot more expensive. Not just a little more, dear, but really pricey, like cocaine. That's a very expensive drug, and no one takes that, do they? No, price rises won't work. What we need is to lance the boil at an early stage, bring back discipline to the classroom, and to that end, it's been proposed that former soldiers train as teachers to really crack down on bad behaviour at school. An ex-sergeant major at the front of the class would make a difference, or at least it would have done, when a teacher could mete out some punishment, but all that's been swept away. Teachers are now powerless, no matter what they were in a previous life, and the kids know it. He may have been a drill sergeant once, but children's intimate knowledge of their human rights mean that even if they're stabbing him in double maths, he'll only be able to ask his assailants politely if they wouldn't mind not doing it again. That'll teach 'em. There was a thing today about Ken versus Boris. This was in the Telegraph. I might talk about their various proposals today, because while America has its own exciting little election fever going on, to which some of us are joining in, we have our own. For the first time in living memory, we actually have something of an exciting race for a position of the power over us. The 3 of them, 4 of them. You always forget the green one at the end. I'm sure there's many more parties. Do we have an idea of exactly how many there are vying for the top job?
I think it's just the 4 main ones.
There's the 4 main ones, but there must be wacky, crazy ones, aren't there?
Probably.
Oh, that's the definitive answer. Probably is the answer. Righto. But this is the Telegraph's sketch, I suppose, is the word for it. Boris and Ken is the funniest show in town, says Andrew Gimson. It consists of Boris Johnson prancing like a bouncy young Labrador round Ken Livingstone, who pretends not to mind as holes are torn in his trousers and even in his political record. Mr Johnson yesterday went so far as to offer to teach the Mayor of London how to bicycle. I think you should just show a lead and learn how to ride a bike, and I'm willing to give you free lessons, he said. According to Mr Johnson, this will enable Mr Livingstone to experience the full horror of trying to overtake a bendy bus and put him in touch with the cycling community. Cheeky young Mr Johnson... Young? How old is he? He must be around about my age, surely. I think it's very dispiriting when you find that people who have made something of their lives are much younger than you are, because you think, oh well, I blew it then, didn't I? According to Mr Johnson, this would... I read that bit. Cheeky young Mr Johnson admitted that Mr Livingstone has said some good things, for example, that only a dehumanised moron would get rid of the Routemaster bus, a point he then proved. He did actually say that, didn't he? I think he used those exact words, Ken Livingstone. A dehumanised moron would get rid of the Routemaster bus. And then Ken Livingstone did just that. The contracts to supply food and drinks for the London Olympics have been awarded to... guess who? That's right. The athletes' favourites, Coca-Cola and McDonald's. No athlete is actually going to drink Coke or eat at McDonald's. I mean, how could they? They're like well-oiled machines. You know, in much the same way as you wouldn't put neat alcohol into the tank of a Ferrari. You could start a tractor with it, but not a highly tuned sports car. Neither would they have... a Big Mac fries and a Diet Coke. But he says, and when questioned of whether those firms can be prevailed upon to provide proper organic nourishment, Mr. Johnson, Boris, took the chance to say, I'm in no way beholden to Coca-Cola or McDonald's or any other capitalist interest to which the Mayor has sold out. A nice twist, because Ken is often termed Red Ken, and would be perceived as a strange bedfellow to Coca-Cola or McDonald's. Turns out it's the other way around. But for most of yesterday's debate at the Royal United Services Institute, in which the mayoral candidates vied with each other to show who's the greenest of them all, Mr. Livingston declined to reply directly to Mr. Johnson's taunts. The mayor wore a smile, which was meant to suggest that his rival's playful nips could not possibly harm a statesman such as himself. The strain of maintaining this pose must be considerable, especially as Mr. Livingston has a natural gift for being rude at his opponent's expense. Brian Paddock, the Liberal Democrat candidate for mayor, announced that his flat is so well insulated that he only had to have his heating on for 45 minutes this winter. Well, it might also be associated with the fact that it had hardly been cold at all, although a bit nippy today, eh? Oh, here comes a lovely cup of tea, just in time. Thank you very much. Blimey, if you microwave that... Lava doesn't come out of volcanoes hotter than that. What are you trying to do? Kill me? Most delicious, though. Well done. My tongue's on fire. Brian Paddock, the Liberal Democrat candidate, he said he's only had to have his heating on for 45 minutes this winter. I'm greener than you are. And Sean? Cyan. I always have problems with... Sean, right. Sean Berry, the Greens candidate, says that the question was whether you could trust any of the three men in suits against whom she is standing. She said that she'd shut City Airport. And she poured scorn on Mr. Johnson's call for a debate on closing Heathrow and building an airport in the Thames estuary. The idea of an island airport is just some crazy Bond fantasy. Well, I'd thought about that before, and I've said it a couple of times on the air, that Heathrow's in the wrong place. I'll mention it again, just in case they decide to move it. There he is, smelling his fingers again. Get your head off your hands.
It's good to be back.
You look like you're falling asleep all the time. Every time I look up, I think, oh, God, this really is boring.
Every word you said, I have.
Heathrow is in the wrong place because planes have to land by flying into the prevailing wind. Is that right? I speak as someone who's got no idea what they're talking about, but I believe that that's correct. So, in lining up to land at Heathrow, they have to travel a considerable distance heading west, which means that if Heathrow is on the west side of town, they've got to fly all the way over London. Heathrow should actually be on the east side of town, so that us Londoners wouldn't be inconvenienced by the hellcat scream of a jet engine every 90 seconds. I mean, that just makes bloomin' sense, doesn't it? They should have asked me. I mean, I know it grew organically. They didn't think one day in the 1960s, oh, let's have it there. It probably started as just an airstrip out there, and one person used it, and then other people came along, and before you know it, they're losing half of London's luggage. But really, to compound their initial mistake to build terminals and continuing to do that, just nailing it down in that place forevermore is just daft. So Boris is right. They should have moved it over there, because in lining up to fly into an airport that's on the east side of London, they wouldn't be flying over London. They'd just be flying over people in Essex. And who cares about them? Even some of Mr. Johnson's admirers have questioned whether he will acquire a sufficient mastery of detail to be mayor. But he seemed at least on top of things as the other three candidates, and perhaps more open to new ideas. That's not the kind of vibe that you get from Boris Johnson. The sort of sense that you get from him is that he's a bit of a sort of a cartoon old Tory. Not, almost has been drag kicking and screaming from another age, you know, when beer was warm and cricket was played on the village greens. He doesn't seem of the modern age, really, But, according to the sketch writer in The Telegraph, who I suppose you would assume is on his side, he seems to be more open to new ideas than the other candidates. At one point, Mr. Johnson even produced, this is Boris, a gadget designed by Trevor Bayliss from his pocket and turned a handle on the side which made it light up. Here, we realised, was yet another way of winding up Mr. Livingston. Now, I wish that had been shown, because that seemed like a lot more entertaining than the Shoutfest that became that Connie Huck programme that was on a little while ago. Of course, here at LBC, we're still trying to get all three of them in the studio, the three main protagonists, and to have a little Shoutfest of our own. We're trying to organise it, and as soon as we do, we'll let you know. 0845 6060 973. If you want to talk about that or anything else that's on your mind, I have many and various different things. The Saudis, might do that. The Putin tirade. Crazy Russian Premier Vlad the Insane went completely off his trolley as a final farewell speech, shaking his fist to the whole of the world. The alcohol tax that the government is proposing, I think that's I think that's a tax disguised as a way of solving the problem that's, you read in the papers every day about broken Britain, as the Sun is terming it. I don't think it will make the slightest bit of difference, but it'll just get them more tax. Soldiers as teachers, you want to talk about that? Britain, well, I don't know, do we want to do terrorists? Hands up who wants to do Britain versus the terrorists. Oh, that's no one. OK, skip over that. Supermarkets are destroying the high street. There's just loads of stuff. But something that I left over from yesterday was the policies that each of the top four, I suppose we could term them, mayoral candidates have proposed. So I might go through those as we come back. It's 7:45. LBC Travel with Amanda Redmond.
Well, still looking at big problems.
Everything is going extremely well.
You bet your life it is. 0845 6060 973. If there's anything on your giant mind that you want to share with me and, everybody else that's listening to this show. Now, one thing that I mentioned a little while ago, and by which I mean the months ago, I think back when I was doing Saturday nights, was the experiment in, I think it's Holland. Yeah, Holland. About taking all road signs away, making pavements and roads the same level, taking the curbs away, and just making the roads look as though it's one giant pavement, but allowing cars to travel down it in much the same way as they do now. Now, you'd think that logically that would lead to everybody dying, but actually the reverse is true. And it's almost as though, if you treat people like babies and you tell them stop here and don't drive there and you can't do this and you can't cross here and do that and do this, that people just switch their brains off and they just act like babies. And then they crash into things all the time because they're not thinking. If you make them think a little more, then come to find out that they actually act like proper adults. They call it naked streets. Redesigning roads to leave drivers and pedestrians uncertain about who has priority will save lives, according to a report by Britain's senior transport officials. The move would automatically cut traffic speed without the need for cameras, they say. So they wouldn't have traffic, like road humps, and they wouldn't have speed cameras or any of that stuff that we got cluttering up our roads now, because you sort of ignore them on an everyday basis, but if you take all of that stuff away, it's actually, or rather, if you just start paying attention to all that clutter that's on our roads, all the signs that don't turn left, don't turn right, speed limit here, and this is the bus stop, and blah blah blah, it's like a forest of hideous signs. And if you take all that away, then not only does it look nicer, but people actually act more responsibly. Or at least they do in Holland. Hasn't been tried much here yet. Barriers and signs such as railings, curbs, traffic lights and white lines cause crashes because people assume they will keep them safe and therefore fail to focus on what other road users are doing. Now, isn't that counterintuitive? All of these measures to keep us safe actually have the reverse effect. Giving drivers less information by removing signs will encourage them to slow down, to negotiate a safer course along the high streets and across junctions. And already, warning bells are ringing in my mind, thinking, well, you know, that may work in Holland, but would that actually work here? The report by the County Surveyors Society calls for a widespread adoption of the concept of shared space. That's one word. I think we call it shared space. It's naked streets in Holland. It's pioneered by the Netherlands. Paradoxically, creating barriers and divisions may worsen safety, said this report, because drivers and riders feel more confident to speed up, despite the limitations on speed at which the human mind can take in the amount of information now displayed in our roads. Yeah, in other words, we're going by all these signs too quickly. We can't read them and take in what they say, and we're crashing into granny. We are social animals, it says, and there is some evidence that the removal of control and the creation of uncertainty can help slow traffic and elicit more considerate behaviour. In the Dutch town of Drachten, the removal of traffic lights at one big junction resulted in crashes falling from 36 in the 4 years before the scheme was introduced to 2 in the next 2 years. That was when they took the traffic lights out. The traffic lights that are supposed to stop people crashing into everybody. The average time for the vehicle to cross the junction fell from 50 seconds to 30 seconds, despite a rise in the volume of traffic. So none of this is as you would expect. You take the traffic lights away, there's fewer crashes, there's a rise in the number of traffic passing this junction, and they're going across more quickly, despite the fact that there's no traffic. None of this makes sense, does it? No, Nick, it doesn't make sense. In Kensington High Street in West London, fewer pedestrians are being injured after almost 600 metres of railing were removed to allow people to cross where they liked. In the 2 years since they were removed, pedestrian casualties declined 3 times faster than the capital's average. Traffic engineers believe that drivers are keeping a sharper eye out for pedestrians because they may cross at any point. No, I think that's desperately scrabbling around for a reason or something, for a phenomenon that they can't explain. Drivers are keeping a sharper eye out? No, I don't buy that. That just might be coincidence. Work will begin next year on removing curbs and giving pedestrians greater priority on Exhibition Road in West London. That's the road that goes up the side of right by the Natural History Museum, goes up by the Science Museum and up towards Hyde Park, right? Exhibition Road, I'm certain of it. So, that wasn't really going anywhere. I just thought that was an interesting experiment that had the result that you wouldn't expect. Quite the reverse, in fact. Because we're obsessed with speed cameras, as you know, fining people as often as possible, and road humps, which are the bane of everybody's life who drives around London. And come to find out that they are killing the planet. The damage, they damage cars and give drivers a nasty jolt, but now speed humps have been found guilty of an even worse crime. They're helping to destroy the planet. The traffic calming measures double the carbon dioxide emissions and fuel consumption of cars by forcing drivers to brake and accelerate repeatedly, according to a study commissioned by the AA, which is, the experience that you have. You slow down so that you don't hit your head on the roof as you go over them, and then you speed up off the back of them. A car that achieves 58 miles per gallon travelling at a steady 30 will deliver 30 miles per gallon when going over humps. The results showed that reducing the speed limit from 30 to 20 resulted in 10% higher emissions. Now, this was one of the measures that has been suggested, making London 20-mile-an-hour zone. Somebody said that just a little while ago. It's probably Ken, was it? Reducing the speed limit from 30 to 20 resulted in 10% higher emissions. This is because car engines are designed to be most efficient at speeds above 30. And that's sort of because Clive was talking about this a little while ago as well, and having read that, you sort of think, I thought at the time, I was listening to it in my car, and I thought, OK, well, I'll try it. I'll try and do 20. But your car doesn't want to do 20. It feels uncomfortable at that speed. It feels as though it doesn't know what gear it should be in. So that's kind of counterintuitive as well, because you think you'd slow down, you'd be protecting the planet, but quite the reverse is true. A motorist who observed the speed limit on 1 mile at 20 during a daily journey would produce an extra tonne of CO2 compared with the driving at 30 miles an hour on the same stretch. Huh. Previous research by the Transport Research Laboratory found that air pollution rose significantly on roads with humps. Carbon monoxide emissions increased by 82%. And nitrogen oxide by 37%. Of course, London Ambulance are upset about it. They think that the humps on the roads caused 500 deaths a year because its crews suffered delays in reaching victims of cardiac arrest. Humps tend to breed more humps. If one street has humps installed, the adjacent street calls for humps, and eventually you find no clear roads for movement of emergency service vehicles. So all of these things we sort of take for granted as truths, slow down, and the planet will thank you, and remove instructions for drivers, and there will be chaos and anarchy, is all completely untrue. Everything that you think you know, you don't know. And the reverse is true as well. And there was too many negatives in there. I'm just trying to think what the reverse was, but I've completely lost it now. That's what you get for talking too long. Isn't that right, Les? Oh, I've hit the wrong thing. I hate when I do that. Les.
Hello.
Hey, Les.
You all right?
Yes, thanks.
Jolly good. Shared spaces.
Yeah.
It does occur to me that we, the public, do not know who funds the research that we get thrown at us. Now, it happens that I'm totally blind, and therefore I have a little sort of inside interest concerning shared spaces, you may imagine. And the research that we're being fed from the Netherlands or wherever, I am told by other people with vested interests, of course, that that is flawed, and it is not the attitude of the public in Holland with the experience that we want to hear. Can you imagine a lady with a toddler and a baby in a pram walking from one side of the road to the other?
Yeah, but I think what they're saying is that it makes you more considerate. Listen, I've got to go. Here comes the news. This is LBC.
I never, ever...
Wallington. Hello, Joan.
Hello, Nick.
Joan.
That business about the cars and the pedestrians all mixed up together.
Yeah.
I heard that before. And,
yeah, that's right.
When I heard it, my first reaction was, well, it forces the cars to go to snail's pace. And that...
Yeah, we've sort of tried it here with pedestrianised zones, haven't we? Where it all does look like a pavement, but you're allowed to drive down it, and you do drive down it at about 5 miles an hour because people are just wandering around the streets.
I think that's what they're trying to achieve, stopping the cars again.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're forced to go down at 5 miles an hour, you're probably going to think, I'll go somewhere else. And so I think it's again, you know, it's against the motorist, really.
Well, no, because apparently that more traffic used this junction than it did before, so that people didn't think of going somewhere else. They were, it was almost as though they were encouraged to use it.
Well, I don't know. And again, you know, a lot of this stuff it's always coming from Holland. Have you not noticed it's always coming from Holland? Holland does this, Amsterdam does that, Holland does this, Amsterdam does that. And I'm not over there, so I can't exactly argue the point. But I have talked to some people from Holland, and they say, it's nothing like that over here. You know, you say, well, we've heard this. No.
Well, no, they're not saying that it's like that in all of Holland. Just in one place, well, in one junction, in one town.
Well, as I say, the only way you can deal with that is simply to make the cars will then voluntarily go to crawl, because they can't afford to bump into anybody. They don't want to knock anybody down, so they're going to say, okay, I'll just crawl through.
Yeah,
but that's not really what a motor car is for, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, it's supposed to be going a little bit faster than that, isn't it?
Well, this is just at a junction. I mean, you know, in the centre of town. It's not going to be like that everywhere.
Well, if it's a bad idea there, or anywhere else, why should it be a good idea there? You wouldn't want to do it anywhere else, would you?
You kind of lost me there. I think you lost yourself there for a moment. It's a bad idea where?
If you're saying, oh, it's only in these one or two places, and it's working,
yeah.
I'm saying if it's so good, then you would have it other places.
Well, only where it's needed. I mean, you wouldn't have it on the M1, but you might have it in the centre of town.
But I would say either make it pedestrian or let cars go through. But I wouldn't say mix it. I think it's a very bad mix. Because, I mean, look, even Sutton High Street, they brought this thing in where at a certain time in the afternoon, suddenly the cars can go through. Now, if your little toddler's wandering about, he doesn't know, oh gosh, it's 4:30, I better just get back to the side now.
Well, hang on a minute. Toddlers wandering about?
Little kids, little doggies, little things, you know. You're walking freely. You're thinking, you know, all right, you're with your parents, but nobody's thinking, oh goodness, a car's about to come through.
Yeah.
Are they? Because you got used to wandering about. It's your space. If you want a place to pedestrians and you say that's for us, then you know I can't really see how you'd mix the cars in.
But they've done it and it's been a success.
I don't think so.
What do you mean you don't think so?
I
just read it. I just read it. It was in the paper, Joan.
The only reason that nobody's getting killed is that the cars aren't going fast enough to kill anybody.
Right, exactly.
Yes, but, I mean, if you had a pavement and you had a crossing, I think that's actually, I would feel safer.
Okay, but...
I don't feel safer where
the
cars...
statistics, Joan, are that... oh, hang on, I've got the wrong piece of paper here. Where is it? I've lost it now. Oh, no.
Oh,
Here we go. Hang on a minute. The statistics are that 36 people died in the 4 years before, 2 in the following 2 years.
Yeah.
So before they took all the signs out and they levelled it all off and they made it just look like one large pavement, 36 people died in the previous 4 years.
That seems a hell of a lot to me. That seems like a hell of a lot of people suddenly died. I don't know where they got those statistics from.
Actually, it's not died, just crashes. We don't know how many people died. Crashes, yeah.
So
36 crashes in the 4 years before, 2 after they removed all the signs.
Yeah, but then again, as I say, you're not going to crash into anything if you're doing 2 miles an hour.
Well, exactly.
But then, if you're going... I mean, they're not saying the pedestrians felt any safer.
But, well, of course they did. 36 crashes to 2.
I mean, I'd still feel safer when I knew cars weren't going to be coming. And the cars feel safer, they know the pedestrians aren't going to be coming.
Why are you continuing to say that? I'm telling you that the reverse is true.
Yeah, but they're not. They're just saying crashes. Now, that could be them banging into each other. It could be them going on the edge of a curb.
But it doesn't matter. It's a crash.
I don't know.
From 36 to 2. Well, 36 in the previous 4 years.
I mean, would you like it? Would you like it?
I think it sounds like a great idea.
Why?
Well, because cars would drive more slowly.
Yeah.
People would be more aware of cars because they're not separated from them by barriers and pavements and signs and lines and all the rest of it.
You should be separated from them. I mean, if you're in a car...
Not if it improves your safety.
I don't think it does.
You're just saying that, though. You're just making it up.
Well, I think somebody's made that up.
Well, why would they do that?
Well, you know there's a great war against the car. You know they're pedestrianising places all over the place.
But this isn't a war against the car. More cars use this junction than after they did...
I'd like to go over there and actually see this blooming thing, supposedly.
Why can't you just accept what I'm telling you?
Well, because you know I don't.
I'm going to call you the argument lady.
Well, how much do you charge?
Well, it depends how much of an argument you want. You want full hour or just 30 minutes?
It really depends on how much time you've got, doesn't it?
Well, I've got all the time in the world.
I might have all the time in the world, but you might not.
I've got from now until next Friday.
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, actually, talking about arguments, if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you should just hear the arguments up there, you know.
Up where?
The inquests.
Oh, right. Okay, this is the Diana thing.
Well, I mean, you know...
It's getting very exciting.
It is. I mean, there's this chap, and you think, oh, look at that honest man, and he tells you this, and he answers that, and you think, yes, absolutely.
Well, is this one of the people from MI, from the secret...
Yes, MI.
MI, whatever they are, yeah.
And there was Lord, Stevens, and then there was McNamara, and you think, oh yeah, well he's absolutely telling the truth, you know. And then this cutie sits down, and the other one gets up, and he says, oh well, no, you said so differently, didn't you? Last whatever, and in year so and so, didn't you say so and so? And the next minute you're thinking, oh, he's upsetting my lovely man who was so truthful a minute ago.
You know, when you look over to the jury, we're talking about the Diana inquest now. When you look over to the jury, are they actually paying attention? Are they sort of drifting off?
Are they just?
Are they?
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
do they look like the sort of people that you'd want?
Yeah, they look very good.
Judging, really?
They do look very good.
Okay.
But although the girl with the miniskirt is now wearing very nice trousers. But I mean, the arguments and the way, you know,
isn't it getting a bit boring, though? I mean, just
no,
on and
no,
on and on.
Boring.
Really?
It's just that it really makes me so annoyed. It's making me realise what kind of a human being I am.
An argumentative
well,
one.
no, I actually don't. I realise that I don't like the man I've just decided to believe, having someone else say to him so-and-so, and he's saying, oh, yes, I did lie.
Right, so
I really don't like that.
So you make a choice as to who it is that you like, and who you're going to believe. In much the same way as I made a choice about who I'm going to vote for a mayoral candidate.
Who?
Yes, well, I can't tell you. And
Why
then,
can't you tell me?
It's not allowed. Yesterday, I thought, right, I've finally made a decision, and then today, the chap that I decided on said something else. I thought, oh no, now you've blown it. Now I'm going to have to decide again.
Yes. I really find it very upsetting to have my opinions swayed, and that's what's happening.
Do you think that it's going to make the slightest bit of difference to people's opinion about what did or did not happen?
It is making a difference to me. It is. I'm hearing.
But if they come out and say,
I don't want to accept.
If they come out and say, well, you know what, nothing to see here, it was just an accident, and people are still going to believe that she was killed because she was dating a Muslim.
No, well, my mind has been changed. My opinions have been changed. I really seriously believed that she was murdered, and possibly because she was so involved in the arms business. In the
arms business?
Yeah, the landmine business.
Oh.
And she was about to take a trip to Angola, and there was there was a big problem there.
Well, I hadn't thought about that. The people who make landmines for a living killed her.
Yeah.
Oh, Joan, you are out of your mind.
Well, no, because if you think about the people that have been involved in other issues that are very political,
that's
they
right.
have been put away.
Princess Di gave a bad name to the landmine manufacturers. Yeah. Nobody had previously thought that they were.
No, she was big profile. Everybody else was thinking about it, but she had a very big, powerful profile.
Well, I think that's probably the first time that I've ever heard that.
Yeah, that's good.
As a reason to.
But anyway, so many issues now. I've had to rethink.
What about the flashing in the tunnel? What did they sort of make about that in the court?
Well, so far I haven't been there on a day when. Well, you see, the thing is about going into a tunnel, you've got very few witnesses.
Yeah.
So that narrows it down hugely. You've either got the paparazzi, who have not spoken on our inquest at all, or you've got people actually involved.
Was there anything ever said in court that drew a sharp intake of breath all round?
Well, the very first day I went there, I remember being absolutely stunned, because that elderly couple who were coming home from dinner with friends, and they were coming up the slip road to join that main road that comes out of the tunnel.
Right.
And coming up on the main road was this car, a white Fiat.
Yeah.
With the young driver, and a great big Labrador sitting in the back seat. And that's how, they could take everything in, exactly what... There was a scarf around the Labrador's neck. They saw everything. And this man was looking in his rearview mirror, he was looking in his side view mirror, he was looking extremely agitated, he was wobbling all over the road. And he didn't even notice their car coming up. And they were really worried he was going to crash into them, but managed to weave around and avoid him, and he went over. That same Fiat was, the next day, had been sprayed red. Sprayed red, yeah.
Is that right?
And you could still see that it had been white.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they'd actually... I didn't know that they found it.
Well, they did. They did.
Did they? Is
but
that
then
commonly known?
I don't know what that particular white Fiat was doing in the tunnel.
Right.
Yeah,
Hang on a minute, Joan, but I didn't think that they'd found the white Fiat. I thought this mythical white Fiat was something that they'd never actually...
Yeah, well, that surprised me. There was a white Fiat.
Okay.
And it had been sprayed red by the next day.
That's the first I've heard of that. Did I fall asleep halfway through this and not pick that up?
No, it's one of those things where you keep hearing bits of it.
Right.
And then there was talk about a man who died in a car.
I've got to go because we're past the traffic news, coincidentally.
That would be a cheaper argument tonight.
But you keep us informed, all right?
Okay.
Is our court correspondent. 0845 6060 973 816. LBC Travel with Steve Reed.
Hi there. There's a lorry on fire on the end.
It's a good idea to get someone else's opinion.
Crawley, Ali.
Yeah, hello, mate. How you doing?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to call about the speak about the credit crunch.
The credit crunch, yeah?
Yeah. Well, at first, I had to stop smoking, yeah, because I couldn't afford it anymore. Because, you know, the debts and stuff. I used to spend 180 quid a month in cigarettes, yeah?
Right.
And, another thing is, for example, the mortgage, yeah?
What are you doing with your phone?
Again?
What are you doing with your phone?
Nothing.
Okay, well, stop it.
Okay, I'll start again, yeah?
All right.
All right.
Oh, that's much better.
Okay. Just saying, like, with the credit crunch.
What kind of a phone have you got?
I'm allowed to say the make.
Well, I mean, is it a phone or you've got a... what is it?
It's a phone. It's a mobile phone.
Okay.
Or do you want me to call back or something?
No, let's press on.
Okay, that's good. It's just, I forgot what I want to say. Okay, I don't know.
My work is done.
Oh, no, nice.
That was terrible. It sounded like he had one of those clip-on microphones. Awful. 0845 6060 973. What year is it? It's almost 2005, and still, communication technology is in the toilet. Reading, Schooner.
Hi there, man. How's it going?
All right, thanks.
Yeah, I was listening to the talk on the traffic and stuff like that, and I remember the fact I heard from one of the guys who ran the congestion charge. I'm not sure if this is a widely known thing around London or not, but I got heard of it, and I thought it was quite crazy, actually. What I heard is that they changed about 6 weeks before the congestion charge came in. The people who ran the traffic lights and things like that, this comes from a source of somebody who actually runs a congestion charge, so pretty high up there. They changed, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, or you're supposed to say my name, but yeah, they changed the
phasing of the lights.
Exactly, so that there was like absolute like manicness like for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then on the day when they bring the congestion charge in, they put them all back to normal. So everybody was like, oh, look at that, great success.
Yes, well, that's not the first time that we've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, I just, because my somebody I know knows the person who quite a very well-informed source in it, and he said that it is true, so yeah.
I think they've done something like that just since Christmas, because driving here through the west of London is significantly easier than it was before Christmas. Like, it's half the time it takes today than it used to.
It's pretty mad, isn't it? When I heard, I couldn't believe it, what they're doing, you know. It's just mad. It is just a big tax thing, like you say, like Nick says with the old, not Nick, Nick Fry was saying about the global warming. It's just any way to tax us, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that either.
No, yeah, I'm not
right.
saying. I just heard it on the ad then, but yeah, it's just mad.
Okay,
yeah,
well,
cheers, man. Cool.
I believe that completely. It's just exactly the sort of thing that they would do. Staines, George.
Hello, Nick.
Hey, George.
About the reduction in accidents when you remove the pavement from the road, it's just all one big area, if you like.
Yeah.
And it's cut down the accidents and so forth. I mean, that's fair enough. But my theory is, I think it's just a shock tactic. I mean, exactly the same, I think, would happen if you painted the whole road yellow, for example. You know, like if you just drove into a road and it was yellow, you would slow down, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose so.
You'd pay attention. It's just something that's different, something that's not normal. And I think that's what gets the drivers. If you did it everywhere, if you thought, oh, that's a good idea, let's let's, as I say, do it everywhere. It wouldn't really help.
Right.
You get my point.
Yes, because what we're the study that in Holland is apparently just one junction in one town.
That's right, and that's it. It's, you know.
So you might be right there. That it is just the surprise of it that makes everyone slow down.
And I think you could do a similar experiment with painting the road a different colour, and you'll probably get the same results.
Yeah. In much the same way as they put chevrons on the road, don't they? And like red stripes and so on, coming up to
no, I mean, if you do something that's normal, it wouldn't get the same attention.
Yeah, but chevrons and the red lines and so on in the road are not what you've been experiencing before you get there. So it is a surprise, and it makes you slow down.
Yes, so long as you don't do it, too many junctions.
Yeah, and then it becomes normal.
Yes, that's right.
People don't pay attention to it anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's an interesting thought, that it might just be a novelty value.
Exactly.
All right, okay, good thinking, George.
Okay,
cheers, mate.
nice talking to you, Nick. Bye now.
0845 6060 973. Global warming. There was something in the papers just the other day about this, and everyone's predicting a disaster, just as we started to enjoy all this nice weather. Heat waves caused by global warming will kill thousands of Britons in 5 years' time, government experts warned last night. Yeah, they're lying about that. It's the most confident official statement yet that climate change will hit Britain dramatically. It warned that by 2012 there will be a 1 in 40 chance the southeast will suffer a serious heat wave causing 3,000 immediate heat-related deaths. Great. More deadly strains of mosquitoes in wetland areas could also cause malaria outbreaks. Not so great. Skin cancer rates will soar due to increased sun exposure. Well, not necessarily. Just wear a hat. They've got lotion for that. There will also be up to 14,000 more cases of food poisoning in a year, including salmonella. Why? Well, because it's warmer out. Just put your food in a fridge. See, they're trying to whip up fear about global warming in order not to make you turn your central heating off, but in order to soften you up for more taxes. And this, there'll be 3,000 immediate heat-related deaths. Well, how many cold-related deaths are there when the temperature plunges in the winter? A similar number, I would think. So with a warmer winter, you won't get those cold-related deaths, but you will get the heat-related deaths. So the weather-related deaths will remain the same. So their whole argument about global warming will be a disaster for everybody is blown out of the water, if you just think about it for a second. Releasing the report, the agency, who are they? Health Protection Agency, said there is a scientific consensus that human activity is contributing to global warming, and there are questions about how to reduce possible health risks. The findings show the UK is adapting well to rising temperatures experienced since the 70s, but heat waves pose an increasing risk to health, and there is an increased risk of flooding. Well, that's true. The flooding bit's true, but then you shouldn't have built your house on a floodplain in the first place. Stupid. There's even a very slight chance that malaria could return to the south of England during the next 50 to 100 years. You see, they put the malaria and like a giant picture of a mosquito right on the story there, but they're predicting that it may happen in 100 years. Not it will happen tomorrow. So in other words, they've got no idea. Jill Morgan, Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation, says climate change will have profound implications for the NHS, but then so does cold. None of this makes any sense. Global warming is saving thousands of lives a year in Britain, says another report. Deaths caused by higher temperatures as climate change intensifies are more than cancelled out by a reduction in cold weather deaths since 1971. Hey, this is exactly what I just said. Once again, I'm right. It gets wearying being correct about everything all the time. Eventually I'll get something wrong. The warmer climate will, however, bring health risks. Chances of a heat wave in the southeast by 2012 are as low as 1 in 40. Well, that's a bit disappointing. I was hoping for more than that. Heat wave by 2012. I'm hoping for this year. This is LBC 97.3. It's 0845 6060 973.
This...
Steve Allen is back in conversation this weekend. If you haven't heard a Steve Allen interview, then I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. He's a very good interviewer indeed, I think. He's going to be talking to the G4 lead singer Jonathan Ansell on Saturday night, tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And if you don't get a chance to catch that, then it will be repeated Sunday morning at 7. This is LBC 97.3. It's 8:30.
Studio calls flashing up on the indicator.
To Central London first. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Nick.
Terry.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, Terry.
Hi, I'd just like to make a quick point on the shared streets business.
Oh, yeah, go on.
If you take a street like Exhibition Road, with the amount of people going down it, you could maybe think that it might work. But then, if you then move up to Oxford Street just before Christmas, and you've got all the pedestrians there, I mean, sometimes it could take you 2 changes of the lights to cross the street, somewhere like Bond Street, and you've got wardens standing there with megaphones telling people to stay on the pavement.
Right.
How on earth would it work on, I can see it work in some areas, but in other areas it wouldn't.
Yeah. And you have a vested interest in this, being
I'm a cab driver.
Cabbie, yeah. Hey, since the fares went up, have the fares actually gone up, or is it just a proposal?
No, it's not. It comes in the
haven't gone up yet, all right.
Yeah, in April I think it comes in.
And do you think, because I can't remember the last time I took a London cab, and normal people like me can't afford them, Terry. Don't you think that it's getting a bit much?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's embarrassing, but, all the costs have gone up all round. I mean, we've got 2 overhauls a year now, or, they say the mid one wasn't supposed to be a full one, but it looks like it's out by that.
Oh, you're cracking up. I just want to ask you one more question. Do you take fares from Heathrow?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do.
And when they arrive at their central London destination from having come from Heathrow, is there just astonishment at how much it costs to do it?
No, not too much for the tourists, no.
Really? Because it can get towards £100, can't it?
Well, I can't think when I last had a job go that much. I mean, I think most times it's about sort of 40 to 50.
Oh, come off it. That's not true. I took a cab from Heathrow to the west of London, around Hammersmith area, and it was 60.
Well, it must have been very heavy traffic, because, it wouldn't go anything like that normally.
OK, then. Thanks, mate.
OK.
0845 6060 973. There is the increase in alcohol tax mooted. Alcohol should be made more expensive to cut down on violent crime, Gordon Brown's advisers have suggested. And to me, it seems like they're just, they're fresh out of ideas. So this is the only thing they can think of. It makes it look as though they're doing something, but I feel that in their hearts they know that it won't make a slight bit of difference. I mean, how much extra are they proposing? Like a 10% extra, a couple of pennies on a pint. This could make absolutely no difference at all. People would just drink cheaper beer. It would have to be, they'd have to double the price. Not the tax, but the price to make any difference. But they'll probably go ahead and do it anyway, because it's a tax thing. And it seems that a lot of taxes that are being suggested or actually come in are coming in sort of undercover of a different policy. Does that make sense? No. I'll try and put it another way. They're saying, for instance, green taxes are to save the planet, but they know really that they won't. A couple of extra p on petrol and so on. It's going to make absolutely no difference, because China and India are going to kill the planet on their own. What we do in this tiny little country makes no difference one way or the other. Same with booze. They feel helpless, because what can they do? So this is what they're going to do, and they're going to pretend that they're doing it to protect us. The strategy unit, which is part of the Cabinet Office, has also told that increasing taxes on drinks would curb domestic violence and reduce traffic accidents and injuries in the workplace. Oh, come off it. No, it won't. The recommendation is contained in a briefing paper. The unit's conclusions come amid growing political unease about the effects of cheap alcohol. Yes, the growing political unease is true enough, because the papers are full of it. They even call it something. I mean, The Sun is calling it Broken Britain. Each of the others have got their own cute name. Shops selling lager more cheaply than water are fueling violent crime and social disorder, a senior police officer said this week. But can that be true? I mean, OK, so you can get a can of beer for 50p, but if it was £2, would that mean that kids wouldn't drink beer anymore? Of course they would. They'd just nick more sat-navs to get it. 137-page report entitled Achieving Culture Change. A policy framework was presented to Cabinet Ministers last month. Culture change. Well, they've got no hope of doing that. A culture change. They're going to change Britain's culture. Something that's taken hundreds, if not thousands of years to arrive at the present state. The report says alcohol consumption has been shown to be sensitive both to availability and price. Well, availability, yes. I mean, if you can't get it, you can't drink it, can you? Increasing the price of alcohol has the potential to reduce road accidents, work injuries, violent crime and abuse. I don't believe you. Ministers are studying the relationship between price and consumption of alcohol and are expected to report in the summer. How are they going to do that, though? I mean, you can't have a controlled experiment. You can't say in Newcastle it's going to be £10 a pint, because people wouldn't stand for it, would they? Ken Jones, president of the Association of Chief Police Officers, said earlier this week that young people were drinking cheap alcohol to excess, which is affecting their health and leading to violent crime. He spoke after the Daily Telegraph disclosed that new government figures showing that the number of drunk children admitted to hospital have risen by nearly 40%. But it doesn't say since when. And you have to take these figures, all statistics I immediately disbelieve. Because it could be that previously they didn't mark them down as drunk. They just marked them down as being, loud or, whenever they say, whenever a statistic is large like that, I always have like a warning bell of doubt in the back of my mind. Senior Labour MP yesterday called for the government to consider using higher taxes to reduce consumption of alcohol, as it had done with cigarettes. Well, that's not quite the same. Kevin Barron, the Labour chairman of the Commons Health Committee, said that the ministers should consider increasing the tax on alcohol to stop children drinking to excess. And I just don't think it'll make the slightest bit of difference. In view of the problems Ken Jones and his staff have up and down the land, this is something that ought to be looked at and researched as a way of slowing down binge drinking, says this chap. Mr Barron also floated the idea of introducing extra charges for people who need NHS treatment as a result of binge drinking. Well, that does make sense. If you do it to yourself... Oh, I feel a song coming on. Then, I sort of agree with that. But then I'll have a lot of people calling and say, well, what about if you eat cake? And then your arteries fur up. And so on. But, we'll see how it goes. Here's another cabbie. Good grief. Wood Green. Hello, Justin.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Yes, good, thanks.
Two things. I listen to your show quite a lot. Global warming, totally agree with you. It's an absolute farce that we're getting stitched up so much by people with propaganda stories of like CO2 emissions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The other one is I done a fare last night from Piccadilly, like the Ritz, to Heathrow. No traffic, straight through run, and that was 49 quid.
49?
Yeah, so I'm confused. The last cab you said you don't take cabs.
No.
And then the next breath you turned and said, well, I took a cab from Heathrow.
Well, yeah, that was one of the reasons I don't take cabs anymore. No, it was 60 quid. I could not believe it.
You said 100.
Well, no, I asked him what it was, and then I said that the one that I took was 60 quid.
100. Was 100.
I said it was 60. I'm going to send you some Q-tips in the post, Justin. You've got waxy build-up.
But your global warming theory is totally right. We're getting stitched every which way, but anything. But it's totally wrong. I know you're going to put the boring one on, but in 1988 there was an explosion on the sun that caused the tsunami, and the waves were 200 miles high of flames, which were rippling across the sun. 1988. What did they say? Global warming. Every time there's an explosion on the sun, the radiation that comes from the sun to us increases. Therefore, our temperature goes up. It's logical.
Wow, it's like watching BBC Two, this show, ain't it?
But, I think your show's very good, but some of your facts are slightly incorrect with...
you must, but some of my facts...
Just remember, and this is for all the listeners, cab fares are going up 4.7%. On a £10 journey, that's 40 pence. How much is a £10 journey in fuel gone up for everyone? Right. That's more than 40p. So,
and what do you get for a £10? Like crossing the road, something like that?
No, you'll get a good fare out of £10.
Right.
But
okay, I'll continue to walk because I just can't afford it.
Oh, I can't believe that, a man of your means.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot, Justin.
Top job, good show, mate.
Ta-da.
Cheers.
0845 6060 973. This seems to be a commonly held thought that all of these measures that are being brought in to protect the environment are nothing of the sort. I mean, does anybody actually believe in this? Or is it just the people that call this show that don't think that it is? That wasn't very clearly put, was it? Seems to be something wrong with me today.
Is it the Friday feeling?
I don't know what it is. Richmond, hello, Alan.
Hello, Nick, how are you?
All right, thanks.
Have you ever heard such a load of rubbish in your life? I would not believe a thing they said. For a start, if this is the result of global warming and it's going to, change our summer and change our winter, for a start, I would rather spend my electric money on air conditioning in summer than heating in winter. If every one of us in England stopped driving and walked everywhere today, it would not make an iota of difference to global warming, because every other country is going to do absolutely nothing.
Well, particularly the emerging countries, which are the big ones, China and India.
Pumping money into and abusing. And
if we in the West went back to living in a cave and ditched all of our electric gadgets tomorrow, it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference, because if global warming is something that once, like a ball rolling down a hill, once it starts, then it just picks up its own momentum, then it started, and we in the West could stop producing CO2 emissions tomorrow, and it wouldn't make any difference, because India and China are charging up behind us.
But we couldn't anyway, because there was one of the Country File programs on the other week. I mean, it was actually quite laughable in a way. There are companies out there that are trying to come out with forms of agricultural grass involving garlic and all manner of things to stop cows farting, because one cow produces the equivalent pollution and CO2 emissions and methanes and that as a 4x4. So what are we going to do? They're going to use that when they finally believe it to wipe out our cattle industry as well.
Yeah.
The biggest joke is biodiesel. Making out that that's a sustainable force is not, because I think it was something like every hour they are cutting down. Because where are they going to grow biodiesel? They're not going to grow it here because we don't have the weather for it. And you know where they have the weather? In Java and places like that. So everywhere that's got the rainforest, every hour of the day they are cutting down the equivalent of 300 football fields of rainforest that has been growing for thousands of years. It's a total joke. And on the drink side of it, you notice every budget, they put it up on cigarettes, they put it up on beer, they might put it up on wine, they never put it up on spirits, and their excuse to justify that will be, oh, well, the binge drinkers don't drink whiskey. No, but guess who does? And if they totally took out the ability of the youth to afford to buy alcohol, you know what they do? They go straight back to meth, glue, and other kinds of solvents. There's nothing they can do. And the difference between a dictatorship and a democracy, do you know what a democracy is now in England?
I imagine that's what's the name of a question that doesn't require an answer? I can't remember now.
Rhetorical?
Yeah, I imagine that's a rhetorical question, like everything else that you've asked.
Right, well, my opinion of a democracy in England is having the choice to vote in the dictator that you want. Because that's all they are. They're just dictating to us what suits them to tell us. You won't change any of it. Doesn't matter what they come up with on statistics. You can make whatever you want out of it, and it's rubbish.
All right.
One last statistic.
Oh, no.
No, seriously, you'll like this one. How, when everybody's against her, can she not even be allowed into America and get 5 out of 6 Grammys? You've got to agree she's the best. around, haven't you?
No. I think that you got 5 out of 6 Grammys because of all the press that accompanies taking a load of drugs, which is the reason why she's getting all the coverage in the papers. Not because she's a great singer. She just has this sort of, this Amy Winehouse, just has this sort of tick that she's got where she just slurs all her words. It's all right. You know, it'll get boring after a while. But she's got the success that she has because she's been taking a lot of drugs, which seems to be the route to fame and fortune these days. 8:46. LBC Travel with Steve Reed.
Thank you. Now then...
Affirmative.
0845 6060 973. As I mentioned at the top of the programme, they're going to suggest putting ex-soldiers in class as a way of reinstalling discipline. Hundreds of former soldiers would retrain as teachers under proposals for a crackdown on violence and truancy in inner-city schools. But that won't make the slightest bit of difference either. Ex-servicemen, including retired sergeant majors, will be drafted in to bring a taste of military discipline to children as young as 5. But they won't be able to, because it would be against their human rights. So what's the point? What are these... Sometimes you do think that the people that are running the country are like magicians, that they're waving their hand in front of your face to take your eye off what they're doing with their other hand. And stuff like this is just attention-grabbing. It's as though they're saying, look, we are actually doing something about it, but they're not. And you feel that they know they're not. Because how could a former soldier... retrained as a teacher, instill a discipline in the class. By doing what? By hitting the kids that are unruly? By giving them the belt? By, marching them up down the parade ground all day long? Of course not. They can't do any of those things. They can just ask them politely if they wouldn't mind not shooting you.
They could bring some authority to the class that teachers are too afraid to use.
But they can't, though. They're not allowed to.
I'm sure they could bring in a new law specifically just for this.
No, they won't. See, once the genie is out the bottle, you can't cram it back in again. You can't bring the belt back out because they know that they can just turn around and sue you. Now that they've been given adult legal rights, or rather their rights have been spelt out to them, so that they know they can get away with anything they want and no one can do a thing to them.
There's no law against shouting at them, though.
Well, there probably is. No, well, you laugh, but...
Teachers shout all the time.
But I bet that if you, as a kid, complained that a teacher was shouting at you, that was abusing your rights to, carry on doing whatever the hell it is you were doing, and shouting is a form of violence, I bet you could probably get them fired. And they know that. This is why society's broken down, because the people who are the problem know that there aren't any, there's no comeback. Doesn't matter what they do. Ex-servicemen, including retired sergeant majors, drafted in to bring a taste of military discipline to children. Some 250 already act as mentors to disaffected teenagers in schools, teaching them skills such as first aid, map reading, and killing people. But a report out today, written by a former soldier, calls on the government to expand the scheme and train hundreds a year as teachers. Well, which I don't know which would be preferable, fighting the Taliban or trying to teach a comprehensive class geography. Tom Burkett said a similar program in the US had proved an outstanding success. Well, yeah, but in America it's different. I think you're allowed to exercise discipline in America. I mean, for instance, their convicts are dressed up in pink leotards and given a rake to clean the side of the road. You'd look fantastic in a pink leotard, Raj.
Thank you.
But, of course, you can't do that here, because that would be disrespecting them. You can't even take their Sky satellite recorder away, can you? The proposal's backed by the former Chief of the Defence Staff, Lord Guthrie of Craigiebank, that's probably not how you pronounce it, said that it could offer an antidote to problems of youth knife crime. Say that to 10 times quickly and suddenly it doesn't mean anything anymore. Youth knife, and you can't say it. Youth knife crime. Youth knife crime.
Yes.
The Troops for Teachers programme, known as T3, was set up in the aftermath of the Gulf War when US forces were cutting numbers. This is in the US. In a report published by the Centre of Policy Studies think tank, the ex-military personnel had proved to be excellent teachers who had exerted a profound effect on discipline and learning in their schools. This is in America. But it won't make any difference here. I mean, you could have the teacher standing up front with a machine gun, and it wouldn't make any difference because the kids know they couldn't use it. So what's the point? It's almost like we might as well just shrug our shoulders and throw our hands in the air and just give up. Or have I gone too far? Sutton. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
OK, thanks.
I've distilled it down into 3 key points with the help of some buddies. This is definitive. It's defining. I'm going to illuminate it for you. 3 things we need to do to change life in Britain for everybody. Here they are. Number
Lay
one.
it on me, baby. Go ahead.
Here we go. Number 1, you've got to address financial reward without work. Number 2, crime without punishment. And finally, number 3, rights without responsibilities. If you could just take those 3 things, make them a bit of an issue, work out the way forward. You're exactly right. If you had teachers in school with submachine guns, you could have Mike Tyson standing in a pair of boxing gloves, holding a flamethrower in one hand and a harpoon gun in the other.
Yeah.
It's not going to make any difference because, as you rightly point out, kids know they've got nothing to fear. I mean, I'm 35. When I was a kid, you knew full well that you didn't give any cheek to a grown-up, because if you did, they were bigger than you, and it was quite likely you'd get a bit of a clip around the ear, let's say. But now, an 11-year-old can confront up someone my age, doesn't matter how big they are, how rough they might look, because they know, well, if you lay hands on me, I'm going to have you arrested.
Yeah, that's right.
I have rights.
And if you stab someone in school, if say you don't like the cut of someone's jib, whatever that means, and you and you get excluded from the school, you'll make an appeal, and they'll put you right, and the governing body of the local council will put you back in the school, despite other teachers not wanting to teach you because you're too disruptive, and so nothing can be done to you at all.
That falls under crime without punishment, you see.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
When you think about it, we live in a society now where if you park your car in your local council-run car park, you buy your ticket, you pay and display, and let's say, for argument's sake, you're 10 minutes late back for whatever reason.
You evil criminal, you.
You can fully expect to get a penalty notice waiting for you on your windscreen with an £80 fine to pay. However, they'll reduce it to £40 if you pay within 2 weeks. By the same token, if you go out to your local town centre on a Friday night, get yourself hammered on alcohol and, for example, smash up a bit of public property, like a telephone kiosk or one of those roadside advertising hoardings, if you're caught, I should say, in the unlikely event that you're caught by a police officer, one of the case disposal options they've got for dealing with that is to give you a ticket, and guess what the fine is? Oh, it's £80. So, on the one hand, a bit of, you're late back for your parking, that's an £80 fine, and yet we're saying that that's on par with going out, being a bit antisocial, drunk, and smashing up some public property. I mean, how does this make sense? What sort of a society is it where we're saying that the punishment for those 2 different crimes
is the same?
Exactly the same.
Yeah, it's like I've said over and over, the whole world's gone crazy, Steve.
What are you going to do?
I don't know. I think shrugging our shoulders and throwing up our hands. That's the only thing that's available
the best.
to us.
I'm going to carry on doing that, and occasionally...
You keep on keeping on. Good man, Steve. Thanks a lot, mate. This is LBC 97.3.
From the establishment to the Abbot.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Your guess is as good as mine, dear. Charing Cross. Hello, Danny.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
All right, thanks.
Oh, mate, I was going to talk about cab fares, but obviously someone else has covered it. A couple of important things I'd like to talk about is Lee Jasper's, I think Ken Livingston's has laid him off. Is that right, I've heard?
Suspended, I believe.
Right, suspended. Does this mean that if he does, while the police investigate, if he does get found out to be guilty, will this force Ken Livingston to resign him? And I'd like to know what the public actually think about it, because he's stuck up for him, saying he hasn't done nothing. Now, he must know something. Would it mean that if he does get found guilty, that obviously something's got to be done with Ken Livingstone, surely.
Well, we'll find out when we if we get there.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you're talking about the crime. Now, I agree with everybody's saying that, we had all these knives, we've had, 25 stabbings in a year and a half. Now, I can't see how it's got this far. Because one stabbing's enough, but once you get caught with a knife, surely you should just get life, that's it.
25 stabbings in a year and a half? That doesn't actually sound that much.
Yeah, we've had four this year already, and I think it was something like 20 stabbings last year, people killed with knives.
If you put it like that doesn't actually sound that much, really.
It's too many.
Well, yeah, of course it is, but you sort of have it in your mind that it's happening...
every day.
Yeah, that you're getting at least that on a daily basis.
It's every day, doesn't it? It does feel like it. And what I'm saying is that either no one or no law or anybody got the balls to turn around and say, look, you get caught with a knife, you're getting life. If you're going to carry it, you're going to use it. There's no difference between a gun and a knife. It scares the life out of my wife and letting my kids out at night. I mean, he's 17 and I'm scared to death him going out.
But it's not just knives that are the problem, is it? It's because people get beaten with bottles or fists and feet and...
I was watching the programme the other night and there was it's like a police chase thing. And there was a street crimes, it was called. There was some town, wherever it was. And there was an innocent passerby. He walked round, a foreigner. He got punched in the eye. Well, they see the guy who done it going to a club. They went and arrested him, came out. At the end of the programme, they said that he got 24 hours community sentence.
Yeah.
To punch it. See, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm 42 now. You just didn't go around doing that to people.
Well, I
don't know where the answer is, do you? It just seems to me that we haven't got the answer, and I don't think it should be down to us. We vote governments in to make these decisions for us.
Bizarrely, we think that everyone is getting let off easily for anything that they do. But weirdly, if you look at the stats, we put away more people per head of population than every other country in Europe, bar weirdly, Luxembourg.
Yeah, for what crime?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The serious crime, is it going... See, if it was drugs and all that, people do get 25 years. But when it comes to killing someone, you don't get... I don't know if it's always been like that, but there's no deterrent now. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And we need someone to stand up and just say, look, this is what's going to happen. And then you'll see that people won't carry knives.
Well, oddly, if that was... available to politicians, if they could actually stand up and say that under the the auspices of the European Union, then you think that one of them would be doing that. I mean, it would be down to David Cameron, wouldn't it? I mean, it would be a giant in for him to do something like that, because you'd think that at least half of the country would switch their allegiance from whoever else they vote on the spot.
Yeah.
But as he's not doing that, you'd have to think that that's not
human rights.
Well, it's either that, or they thought about it and they've realised that it wouldn't work for some reason.
It would. Well, it's got to work. If someone said to me, you throw someone out of your cab at night and you hit them, and they said you lose your badge, I wouldn't throw someone out of my cab and lose your badge. And I'll throw someone out of my cab. You've got to have some deterrent. There's got to be something there.
But you know what? When people, like I've said this before, I was talking about this yesterday, when people are actually in the process of committing a crime, they're not thinking about what the penalties for that crime are, because they're not thinking they're going to get caught.
I think they thought that a long time before they've even thinking of the punishment. They've already thought, I don't know, I'm not going to get punished that much anyway. And I think that's how they think. It's
quite possibly.
Because there's not enough. There's not. The bank robberies and all that, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
People getting 25 years life. There's not as many of them as there used to be, because people know they're going to get life for that.
Well, it also might be because the banks are a lot more secure than they used to be. Yeah,
well, something's got to be done, Nick.
Well, yeah, I agree with you there. All right, thanks very much, Danny.
Thanks,
cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate.
0845 6060 973. In much the same way that the government takes credit for a lack of vehicle crime. I mean, they could say that there's far fewer bank raids now. Thanks to our munificent leadership, the Labour Party has reduced the amount of bank raids from whatever it was under the previous administration, but it's got nothing to do with them. It's just that there's cameras everywhere and they've got bulletproof glass up there. Same thing with vehicle crime. They do actually claim credit for the lack of vehicle crime now. Not nicking your sat-nav, but actually getting in and driving away. But it's not anything to do with Labour's crime policy or more police on the streets or anything like that. It's just that manufacturers of cars are making them more secure. Simply. But, part of me, because you do get sort of caught up in the press reports on a daily basis about the violence on the streets, and eventually, I don't know about you, but I can't read any of that anymore, and I just flip the page, because wallowing in other people's misery is only, well, I was going to say enjoyable, but that's not quite the right word, is only well, you know what, it isn't enjoyable, but it's diverting. It can only be diverting for a certain period of time, and then I just can't take it anymore, and I want to read about, I don't know, anything else. But I wonder if it is just that it is being reported more, not necessarily happening more. Because if that number that he just said was right, it's 27 or whatever it is in the last year and a half, and he didn't specify where, so let's just assume that it's countrywide. Could that be true? Countrywide, 27? Murders by knife in the last year and a half. That actually doesn't sound that much.
That number sounds a little low to me.
It does, yeah. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it?
No. But that's still 2 a month. 2 and a bit a month.
Yeah, but what is the murder the murder rate? It must be many a week. In fact, it might be many a day. Well, it must be. It must be more than 365 murders in this country a year.
I don't know, that sounds like too many almost.
Oh, what would be the ideal number for you? Brent. Hello, Steve.
Hello there, Nick.
Steve.
How are you this evening?
All right, thanks.
Right, you were talking earlier on about global warming. The old adage that seems to be the thing everybody's interested in nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I personally think it's a load of baloney. I think it's just an excuse, as several of you called us said before, for the government to raise taxes on the back of the green issue.
Yes.
And the one thing they haven't looked at is a certain piece of, shall we say something that's in the solar system, about 93 million miles away from here, called the sun.
Yeah.
And that's changing. So that's going to have an adverse effect on our climate anyway.
Yeah, somebody called in about that earlier on. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that when you get all these so-called experts coming on and saying all this, a lot of them are actually employed by the government. So they're going to toe the government's party line on this issue.
I do get the sense, and so do I believe a lot of other people, that the government was trundling along and they've taxed us with this and they've taxed us with that, and they were running out of ways to tax us because people were grumbling and mumbling and they wouldn't want to open their wallets anymore. But all of a sudden, a little light bulb went off. One of those green light bulbs that throws out unclear light.
Have you actually put one of them in and see how bright they are?
I hate them.
They are terrible. And I'll tell you what, there's now apparently there's a new study been shown that these can cause migraine headaches.
Yeah.
Because
they flicker.
They flicker. It's
Plus, they make everything look like you're in a police waiting room.
Where I work, I'm under fluorescent tubes all day, and sometimes when I come home, I've got the worst headache you can imagine. I really have, and it's just a fate. I think one of the best people who really has looked at this issue is a scientist called David Bellamy. You might have heard of him.
David Bellamy?
Dr. David Bellamy.
Yeah, the beardy guy.
That's him, yeah. Now, I think it was a couple of years ago, I can't remember exactly when, but I think it was a couple of years ago, he actually wrote an article in the Daily Mail, and he totally and utterly rubbished the whole global warming industry.
David Bellamy?
Saying that, but it is actually to do with the change in the planet. It's cyclical. It comes around. We've had...
well, yes, we used to be under 100 foot of ice, 100 miles, or however, I don't know, so I'm just going to make it up. 100 feet of ice, right where we're sitting at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what sort of age you are. You sound about 23 or so.
Yeah, that's right, 23.
You're quite young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit older. And I remember in the 60s... So
I'm way over than that, Steve.
Yeah, so am I, mate. I remember in the 60s, we had... I think it was 3 or 4 very, very severe winters. I remember quite, as if it was yesterday, 1963, and in particular 1964.
Yeah, when the weather outside was frightful.
Yeah, it was terrible. We had a lot of snow, and I'm not talking a couple of centimetres, I'm talking feet.
Yeah.
It was absolutely freezing cold. And out came these young ideological people from these colleges saying, we're all doomed, we're all going to die, everything's got to freeze over, polar bears in the high street, saber-toothed tigers in the parks, and it didn't happen.
I do remember that, yes, there was going to be a big freeze. We were charging towards another ice age. Yeah.
And then in the 70s, again, if you can remember the 70s, I think I can remember some of it, we had 3 or 4 very hot summers.
Yeah, 76. Oh, what a year that was, eh?
Well, 74, 75, 76 and 77, I think.
Well, 76 was the peak one.
Yeah, it was the peak one. And as they came, the beards were a little greyer, we're all doomed, we're all going to die of skin cancers, everybody's going to frazzle to death. And it didn't happen.
No.
And I think you're right when you say that the governments have got to the stage now where they can't tax us on the things they already hit us with hard, like income tax, VAT, etc. So they're thinking up new ways of putting up taxes on the back of this global warming frenzy.
You could almost hear the light bulb going off above their heads when they thought, oh, hang on a minute. The people are full on behind this whole green thing. Yeah. If we tax them and tell them that it's a green issue and that we're really doing this in order to save them, then they'll be virtually throwing their money at us.
They will. And the biggest culprit, in fact, is our good Mayor of London, who's just introduced a green tax. It's not congestion charge, a green tax
the CO2
on 4x4s. CO2 emissions.
Well, he will have to be re-elected for that to come into effect.
Well, I mean, as much as I'd like to see the man go, I can't really see the two main individuals who have been put forward as being successful in making it as Mayor of London, I'm afraid.
Well, we will be following it closely. Thanks very much, Steve.
Okay, mate, you have a good evening.
Cheers, mate. I still think that I would prefer to put my tick as I go into the booth to make my vote beside none of the above. I'm not completely satisfied with any of them. 0845 6060 973. It's 9:17. LBC Travel with Steve Reed.
I'm going to start by telling you about...
Correct. 0845 6060 973. This is LBC. We have a film club with Cineworld Cinemas. This month's movie that you can see first and for free is The Bank Job, a highly charged thriller based on a true story about an unsolved robbery which has links to the royal family, starring Jason Statham and Saffron Burrows. For your chance to see this film and others, just go to the website, which you'll find at lbc.co.uk, and sign up to the VIP club. It's the LBC 97.3 Film Club with Cineworld Cinemas, and the website again, lbc.co.uk. Can you put that article up again? I want to read some of that, because this is quite interesting. This is detailed analysis of real crime trends in London. This is put out by the Mayor. The Greater London Authority today, this was on this is in January, released the following detailed analysis of crime trends in London following the release of the Metropolitan Police's crime figures for 2007. Now, you'd think that it would be off the scale, because we read about precious little else in the papers these days, and sometimes I read it and I wonder, is it like dog attacks? And I always come back to this because it's a good analogy. Dog attacks are happening every day of the week, many, each day. They never get reported in the paper until a particularly nasty one happens, and then all the press will report that, and then they'll report every dog attack that happens over the course of the next week, and then they'll drop it, and then they won't report any more. It's not that they don't happen anymore, it's just that they got bored of that, and then they want to go talk about something else. Now, I wonder if this is one of these things that has that has got more life to it. Poor choice of words. But they've got this story, and it's all about making money, of course. I mean, the press don't print things that they think that you will be unlikely to pick up. So they stick it on the front page, Britain's broken, or whatever the individual papers are calling it, and then they'll detail all of these violent assaults, which used to happen every day, perhaps, but they didn't get reported because it's local stuff that, wouldn't be interesting to a national audience. Because people get beaten up all the time and they get stabbed and they didn't used to get shot so much because guns were less readily available. But I just wonder whether it's become like a fashion almost for the newspapers to pick up this sort of thing, and because it's working for them financially, they're just continuing to run with it, so that it looks as though it's all gone completely out of control, but the figures are perhaps the same as they were maybe 5 or 10 years ago. The Greater London Authority released the following detailed analysis of crime trends in London following the crime figures for last year. This is the 5th year running that we've seen crime in London fall. Now, this is the Mayor saying this. So you'd think that you would have to treat some of this with a little bit of caution, because statistics can be made to fit your story, whatever it might be. But these appear to be the bald facts. Last year, 6.1% fall in crime was the highest yet. The average annual fall in crime is 5.5, so it went down more than the average last year. Murders are down by 28% since 2003, which is a significant amount, down from 222 to 160, and there's no way that really you can call a murder anything other than a murder, right? I mean, you couldn't dress it up as some other name and say that, and put the statistics in another column so that it makes it look good. I mean, a murder's a murder, there's no getting around it, is there?
A murder by any other name would still be as bad.
Rapes down 25%, gun and knife crime. Now, you'd think they'd be up since 2003, if you go by the newspaper reportings, right? You'd think they'd be off the scale, up 100%, 200%, what do you reckon, 300%? Just enormous. Down by 20%. Robbery, down by 23%. Ken says this shows the outstanding work being done by the Metropolitan Police. A crime wave started in London in the mid-90s due to the reduction of police numbers. The substantial year-on-year increases in police numbers that Ken's introduced since 2000 are reducing crime, so he says. But then he would say that, wouldn't he? But then would there be any other way of interpreting these statistics? I mean, either he's making this stuff up, or it's not as bad as we're being led to believe. And we are all sort of holding our head in our hands and thinking, well, this country is entirely broken. It's a busted flush. We might as well just move to Spain or Venezuela or Baghdad or anywhere else you'd be safer. But if you look at the figures, actually the reverse is true, which is what I've been thinking all along. That perhaps it's just the press seeing their opportunity, because they've all been scrabbling around since Princess Di died. They haven't got one story that they can guarantee will sell more papers. And they tried David Beckham for a little while with great degree of success. But apart from him, no one story has come along that you can print day after day after day and will sell more papers. But they may have found one. And this might be it. So it might be that they're making it appear as though you are taking your life in your hands when you leave your front door. But actually it's safer now than it was even 3 years ago, which is counter to the current prevailing mood, which is being led by the press, who are making money off telling us how dangerous everything is. Does this make sense?
Yes.
What's the rest of that article? Is there anything more interesting in there? Overall crime in London falling substantially. The rate of decline is accelerating. So not only is it going down, but it's going down faster, the level of crime. Which is completely the opposite to what we're reading in the newspapers, isn't it? It's totally the reverse story to that which they're throwing at us day after day. And it actually might be ruinous to the health of the nation, this. Because you do hear in people's voices when they call about this sort of thing that, it's like well, we're just practically giving up on this country. It's screwed, and the only thing you can do is to get out. Because the barbarians, they're not at the gate, they're inside, and they're headbutting you. They're busting your car window, and they're nicking your sat-nav, and they're stabbing you while they do it. But none of that is actually true, if you look at the stats. And so it's only people's perception of what's happening that's the problem. And people's perceptions are dictated, or not dictated exactly, but they're led by the coverage that it's getting in the newspapers. So it's the journalists' fault. They've seen their opportunity to tell us that everything is going to hell in a handbag. And it's a story that they can run on a daily basis, and people don't seem to get tired of it. People don't seem to get tired of being frightened out of their lives, which is partly how Hollywood continues to make so much money, and the same could be said for roller coaster manufacturers. Just a thought. This is LBC. It's a job most of us can only dream of, but a team of beer police patrol our London pubs on a daily basis to ensure local landlords are serving the perfect pint of ale. Bill Buckley's going to be finding out if it really is a dream job, and he'll be meeting the man behind next week's national You Are What You Eat campaign. Join Bill Buckley. He's got the Food and Drink Show Sunday from 3. This is LBC 97.3, 9:30.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
This is the trends in serious crime. I'll just finish with this because I think this is quite interesting and completely counter to the sort of mood of the nation, which I think is being driven by journalists. Yes, I said journalists. Murder down by 28% since 2003. In 2003, there were 222 murders. In 2007, 160. Rape down by 25%. A sharp fall in knife crime, down 13%. Overall, it's down 18% since a peak in 2004. And if you asked 100 people in the street when the peak of knife crime was, you'd say, right now. Never have more people been getting stabbed than right now. But that's actually not true. Unless these are all fake statistics that the mayor is putting out to make his policies look better. But you'd have to question why, or how rather, he could finagle these stats. No. Grievous bodily harm fell by 12% last year. And then there's a detailed analysis, which I won't bother you with, but the overall picture is, it ain't as bad as they're painting it. Heathrow, hello Tommy.
Hello mate, how are you?
All right, thanks.
Right, I'm in agreement with you. When it comes to voting for the new Mayor of London, I'd do the same as you, none of the above.
Yeah.
So I've got an idea. I've been listening to you for a while now. I like your ideas. Why don't you run for Mayor?
Yeah, I'll do that straight away, yes.
Right? Because Livingston, whatever, I mean, I dislike the man with a passion. And you can always tell when he's lying, because his mouth moves. So,
well, you could say that of anybody who's after the public vote. Unfortunately, we have to rely on human beings to run us. Until they can invent a machine that can make these decisions for us, then we'll have to stick with people. People aren't the solution, they're the problem. But I'll seriously consider running. Thanks a lot, Tommy.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, mate. Ta-ra. Some of their policies were coagulated. That's not the right word. Were all put together in one big lump by the Standard yesterday. And you can compare and contrast. Ken Livingston, £25 a day congestion charge for what they call Chelsea tractors, which aren't Chelsea tractors at all. It's basically any car that is not, that's got an engine bigger than a sewing machine. A low emissions zone to keep lorries out of town. A Paris-style bike hire scheme. I went to Paris just recently. They don't have a cycle scheme. I think that's a misconception. It's not a bicycle scheme. They're motorbikes. Tiny little putt-putt motorbikes. But they're painted white. I don't believe that such a thing would work here, because people would just nick them. Or maybe that's a misperception as well. Thievery. Try and see if thievery is down on that thing there. I can't be bothered to read through the whole thing. But see if there's a stat on people nicking things. And Green Homes Advice Service giving subsidies on insulation. Shouldn't people be able to buy their own insulation? I mean, the government, I'm sure, will come up with a way to fine people if they don't insulate their homes. They'll be able to find the money from somewhere. Boris Johnson, work with the councils to make recycling easier and back free cycle exchange schemes. That seems vague. Plant more trees along London's streets. Encourage people out of cars to walking and cycling. Well, that'd be all right if you were in Amsterdam, where you could reasonably walk from one end of town to the next, but London is just too bloomin' big. How can you walk around, from where you live into the centre of town? You can't do it. Consider moving London's major airport to the Thames estuary. Well, I'm sorry, Boris, but that's just a daft thing to say. How can you up Heathrow and move it to the Thames estuary? I mean, they've just spent billions on a shiny new terminal, and they're in construction of another one there. I mean, that's never going to happen. That's kind of a silly thing to say, isn't it? And act as a green procurement force to strike competitive deals with companies for environmental products. I don't even know what that means. On the basis of that, of these proposals, now this just might be the way that the Evening Standard has worded it, but you'd have to say that Ken's on top, because the Boris ones seem a bit vague. Brian Paddock of the Lib Dems, a £10 out-of-town congestion charge for tourists and commuters. Pedestrianise Oxford Street and provide free bendy bus shuttle service from Marble Arch to Centre Point. No, boo to bendy buses. Double-decker buses. I can't believe that no politician is saying this either. That chap's right. I should run. Because it's blooming obvious what people want. People like the old Routemaster bus. So get a new Routemaster bus with all the modern technology that would go along with that, and just give people what they want, and people will vote for you. Get people's backs up, and they won't. The out-of-town congestion charge, that would mean that people who live in town wouldn't have to pay, so that wouldn't solve anything either, would it? It would just mean that people from out of town would be squeezed onto trains that you can barely get onto at the moment. This is still Brian Paddock. Back a scheme for free insulation to 10,000 homes in the 25 most deprived wards. Tackle waste by making it easier to reuse and recycle. Also sounds very waffly. Move London's energy supply off-grid and improve energy efficiency. I don't know what that means. What does that mean, off-grid? It sounds like Sarah Connor in The Terminator. She was off-grid. Hey, that's coming back to television soon, isn't it? The Terminator. Can you even wait? Isn't that exciting? I'm quite excited about it. They got those teaser ads in the newspaper with the Terminator's eyes and just the date, 21/02/08. The Terminator's coming back to the TV.
I'm excited.
Huh?
I'm excited.
You don't sound excited.
It's been a long day, but inside I'm partying.
Here's Sean Berry from the Green Party. Free insulation for every home that needs it. This seems to be a running theme. Insulating homes. I think if you own a home, you should buy your own bloomin' insulation. Cut single bus and off-peak tube fares by 20p. What? Why? By 20p? That seems very precise, but it wouldn't... What difference would that make? I don't know. I could come up with the 5 bullet points that are better than any of these. And people would vote for me. If they just saw the bullet points that I could come up with, I'd blow all these people out of the water. Why aren't I, I should be, you'd vote for me, wouldn't you, Raj?
Of course.
Liar. Free bike hire on the streets of London, says Sir Sean. Free? I mean, they tried that in Holland. In Amsterdam itself, they had thousands and thousands of white bicycles, old bone shaker type jalopies, and they all got nicked. And if they're going to steal them in Holland, they'll certainly steal them here. This is still Sharnberry of the Greens. Planning changes and cheap loans to deliver 100,000 solar roofs by 2015. Well, you know, that does make sense. The solar power has to be the future. It's completely reliable. You know, I mean, given allowance for clouds, but it's still, even with clouds, you're still getting a lot of energy. I mean, we've got no end of plants that are growing in this country, and they're all getting their energy from the sun, even though they don't see it very often. So there is a tremendous amount of energy coming through even clouds. It's just that we haven't learned how to harness it yet. And you'd have to think that, of all the things that are being tried right now, wave power, that's not going to work. Wind power, that ain't going to work either. The only one that is actually reliable is solar power. We just haven't breached the technological gap between where we are now and utilising it more efficiently, like trees do. All we have to do is act like a tree and leave. But until we do that, it makes perfect sense to go with what we've got. I saw a report today that said that we are the second least. Let me rephrase this. We're the second worst for using renewable energy in Europe. And we'd like to think that we're at the forefront of all of that, but we're not. We're trailing way behind. So that makes sense. And replace City Airport with a green industries park and affordable eco-homes. Oh, Sean, you lost us right at the end there. And each one has, each of these candidates, Ken, Boris, Brian and Sean, they've all got one good idea, and you think, oh, yeah, and I'm okay, I'm going to side with you now. And then you read down, and you come to their daft idea, and you think, oh, okay. Next. It's very disappointing. Am I the only one that's disappointed by the selection that we've got?
Yes.
That's not true. Maidstone. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. I'd just like to make a comment about the crime figures, the reduction in crime figures that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I was a police officer in the Metropolitan Police for 30-odd years.
Right.
And I retired a couple of years ago, got my time in. I recently had an incident where I was the key holder for what was a nightclub that had closed down, gone out of business. I turned up there one day, and the rear doors had been forced off the hinges. All of the internal doors smashed in. The cigarette machine ripped off the wall. The gaming machine rolled down the fire exit. All the lighting stolen, etc., etc., etc. Phoned up the local police to find out, A, why I hadn't been informed of this, seeing as my details were on the door, and B, what the crime reference number was, and I was told that there was no crime reference because there was no evidence that a crime had been committed.
What?
Now, I don't know whether they need to see someone in a striped jumper with a swag bag over their shoulder before they recognise what a crime is, but basically they said that they thought it was an abandoned building. Well, it was a licensed premises, so the police should have been aware of the fact that A, it had been a licensed premises, and B, that it was no longer operating.
Right.
The fact that our signs from the door showed that somebody cared for the property and they couldn't be bothered to ring us. The issue that I'm trying to point out here is that crime figures are easy to massage. If you don't report it as a crime, it isn't a crime, full stop.
I agree with that, and I think that some of these figures that I gave out should be taken with a pinch of salt. But some of them, like murder, you can't massage murder figures.
Well, you can, because it can become manslaughter. Murder is about perception, isn't it? If when we do a lot more deals over here than we ever used to, you know, solicitors and judges and the whole legal system are now, you know, well, if you plead guilty, you know, like in America where they do plea bargaining.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of thing takes place over here as well.
Okay, well, let me ask you then. You were a policeman for 30 years. When did you retire?
2005.
Right. And in your 2005. See, it's just recently, just in the last year or so, you'd have to say, that we're being told, all the information that we're getting from newspapers is that this country has gone completely out of control. So I'll ask you, what do you think?
I think it's been a gradual process, to be honest with you, over the last 20 years. Police officers are not shown any respect any longer. And to be honest with you, a lot of the times they don't deserve to be given any respect. They don't behave correctly. The PCSO issue, which I know has been gone on and on and on about in the media, is an embarrassment. They don't look like they're enforcing the law. They've got no powers. They might as well put cardboard cutouts on the street. So I don't think it's been a recent thing. I think it's been a gradual erosion, to be honest with you, of law and order in this country for the last 20 years.
And you would have you are at odds with the trends that are the statistics that I just read out are suggesting.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So you say that it's actually the newspapers have got it right, and the crime is going up, and it's relatively out of control now.
I think there's always going to be an element in the press, certainly in some aspects of the press, of scaremongering. But I think if you was to go out there and take a census of the people on the street as to whether they actually feel safer today than they did 20 years ago, the answer from the public would be that no, they don't feel safer, that there is more fear of crime.
Yes, but that's the point that I was trying to make, was that unless you're actually the victim of crime, then it's just a perception, and your perception is coloured by the coverage that you read in your daily newspaper. If your paper is telling you to bolt your doors and close your curtains because you'll get killed if you leave your front door, then that mindset is going to seep through, and you will be more fearful, whether or not there's anything to be fearful of.
But you will also be more fearful because of the fact that you don't feel that the police are empowered to deal with situations. I mean, take it with my example there. As far as I'm concerned, I'm the victim of crime, but the police are saying to me, no, you're not.
Right.
That makes me even more fearful than just being a victim of crime, because now I feel no one cares.
Yeah.
And that nobody can do anything about it.
All right, well, it's been good talking to you, Steve. Thanks very much for the call, all right.
Most welcome. Bye.
0845 6060 973. It's 9:46. LBC Travel with Steve Reed.
Thank you. Let's have a quick glance over.
Come on, we're running late.
Here's one in Romford. Hello, Alistair. Oh, Alistair.
Hi, Nick. Yeah,
Yes.
hi, Nick. Yeah.
Alistair, how you going?
Yeah, not so bad, not so bad. Yourself?
Yes, good, thanks.
Excellent. What do you remember about science from your school days?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Lime water carbon dioxide turns lime water milky.
Right. So do you know what the milkiness is? No idea.
No.
It's chalk. Solid chalk.
Ah, yes.
So we've got
I
a
knew
way
that.
of taking carbon dioxide out of the air and turning it into chalk, a harmless substance. Isn't that a marvellous thing?
Yes.
So all you need to do to solve global warming was get enough lime water and blow the carbon dioxide, which is so bad for everybody through it, turn it into chalk, and it's not blackboard chalk, it's just lime, chalk stones, and, bury it in the ground like it has been for millions of years with no problem to anybody else. Well done, you've solved it.
Oh, thank you. This programme hasn't been a waste of time.
Absolutely not.
Right. Good man. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
0845 6060 973. Right, we've solved global warming. We've solved all crime. What's next?
World hunger. Maybe Gary should just give some of them his sandwich.
What's in your sandwich, Gary?
Oh, cheese and pickle.
Cheese and pickle. My favourite. Feltham. Hello, Chris.
Hello, sir.
Chris.
I'm a fan of yours, sir, because you're one of the few people on this radio station that talks sense. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You have the all-seeing eye, sir. I think, right, you're totally right. I think everything that's going on at the moment, we're being scaremongered into some sort of frenzy of, please take away my liberty and please put up more cameras and please give me an ID card and please help us from this thing that, is it really happening? Is it really happening to the degree that, we think it is?
There was an interesting series of documentaries, and I wish they'd show it again, I think it was called The Politics of Fear. This was shown on BBC Two a little while ago.
Please text me when this stuff's on, because I don't watch it anymore, because I don't be brainwashed with all the
right.
that's on.
It's probably available on YouTube. All the good stuff is.
What's it called?
I think it's called The Politics of Fear, something like that, where politicians have found relatively lately, that to keep the reins of power, they just make their subjects fearful for their lives.
They've done it all the time. They've done it for years to keep us in order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my other concern is slightly right. You are quite outspoken, and I think you've got big cojones, my friend, for doing what you do. The thing is, the people at the top who probably control all radios and everything at the end of the day are not going to like what you're doing either. And I fear that, one day someone's going to take you, the voice of us, off the radio. They're not going to like hearing this, are they? But,
yeah, well, it almost certainly will happen.
You don't feel like you're stepping out on a limb at all by going, look what's going on, people. because I think, you know, you're the man.
Well, there's probably something to be said for that, but Nick Ferrari does it too, and way more people listen to Nick than listen to me.
No, but not the way you do. Not the way you do, sir. I think you have a much more... and I'm not normally a cynic, see. I'm normally the sort of positive, but I'm realising I'm becoming... It's not really cynical, I think it's becoming more open-minded and seeing more of what's actually going on in the world.
Right.
You need to see... Have you seen Zeitgeist, by the way?
What is it?
Go on YouTube and check out the film Zeitgeist. Everybody listening, go on Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist. It's on Google Video. The big picture thing. People won't like what they're going to see.
What is it, though?
It's the sort of thing about what's really going on. It's about the sort of stuff you're talking about. It's about what's actually going on.
Conspiracy theory.
Well, you can say that, but then you're a conspiracy theorist from what you're saying, because you're saying actually there's more stuff going on that we know.
But you can get carried away with that sort of thing. I mean, there is a famous there's a famous film called Loose Change, which is all about 9/11.
You believe it?
Well, when I'm watching it, I believe it. But then you think about what they're saying afterwards, and you think, oh, come off it. What, George Bush actually encouraged them to fly those planes into those buildings?
Come on. Look, okay, let's just go back 1 second, right? The Second World War. Why did the Americans join the war? Because Pearl Harbor got bombed.
Yeah.
Why did Pearl Harbor got bombed? We had the best intelligence on the planet. The Americans did. They knew that Pearl Harbor was going to be bombed way before it did. The best way to join the war is by having the American public personally attacked. All right, not in America, it wasn't at the time, but it was on the beach. 2,500 of their troops got killed. We know that. The next day, America went, well, we've been attacked by the Japs. We've got to get involved with this war. Boof, how long before the war was over? Not long at all. Did you know, well, you've seen all these other things. George Bush's grandfather was actually one of the people that was financing the First World War. You know, war doesn't... It's not a matter of, you know, they just want to get involved. There's all money behind it. It's got nothing to do with anything that apart from power and money for these people.
Well, as long as you don't say anything controversial, Chris, that's excellent.
No, not at all, you know. Just don't tell them where I live.
Right. Okay.
My door's going to get kicked in a minute. I'm waiting for them.
They'll be coming through your window, yeah. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Keep up the good work, sir.
0845 6060 973. Now I'm worried. Now I'm not going to say anything about anything at all, ever again. I'm just talking about the weather for 3 hours.
What's the weather going to be like this weekend?
I can't tell you. It's too controversial. I can't say that it'll be nice or bad. It'll be middling. And that's as far as I'm prepared to go.
Could you give me an indication either side, so I know whether to play golf or not?
Golf? Are you a golfist?
Would that make me against golf?
That's a Jeremy Clarkson phrase, and just that one word is. I mean, he has a way with the language, but golfists summons up everything you need to know about people who play golf. It's one of those ists words, like fascist. That's why he picked it, I'm sure. I like the game of golf, up until the point at which your ball skites off at 90 degrees to where you intended it to go. That and all the ridiculous rules that come with golf. Well, you can't play when somebody's walking towards you, and you can't play with your shirt not tucked in. Can you believe that?
That's only in some clubs. Some are a little bit more relaxed than that.
Well, relaxed is neither here nor there. Them's the rules.
Well, the one about people walking towards you, that's just safety.
Well, I suppose so, yeah. But you can't wear shorts unless they're tailored.
What?
That's
yeah, because
true.
You don't want riffraff on the golf course.
Well, I mean, come on, that's just daft. It's, what year are we in? 2005. We should step into the 90s, really. Tailored. And the shirt tucked in thing. And you can't wear tracksuit pants, and, it just goes on and on.
Golf course is not for you then, isn't it?
Well, I haven't got time to play golf now. Work. But you know me, I don't like to complain.
No,
hey, what have we talked about today then, Rog?
Well, today, Nick, we talked about the European Union, homeless newts, cocaine.
Homeless
newts.
Newts, yes.
Yes, cocaine.
On the membrane.
Yep. And incidentally, did you know 99% of all banknotes are traced with cocaine?
Yes, I did know that.
Oh, I bet you did. Price rises.
So rude.
Soldiers as teachers.
Yes.
Ken versus Boris in the mayoral election.
Oh, yeah. I
Election fever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got it.
Brian Paddock's heating.
Yeah.
Closing airports and moving into the estuary.
Right.
Heathrow's in the wrong place, apparently.
Is it?
Yes. People in
Where
Essex,
did you learn that?
You told me that.
Oh, no, time's up. LBC.
Look good with tomorrow's Daily Express.